Be natural.
Okay.
Pretend that none of this.
It's
None
no
of
big
this.
deal.
Okay, cool. So can you just start by saying your names, where you're from, you do just a really simple introduction.
Leticia Pollock, co-founder of Panther Coffee in Miami, originally from Brazil, but we've been living in Miami for about 6 years now, after living in Portland for a little bit.
Joel Pollock, co-founder of Panther Coffee.
So what are you doing here in Seattle?
We have the luxury of a 1-month residency at Marzocco at KEXP, and we're going to be serving our coffee with the talented team here, and just sort of a collaboration with La Marzocco.
Can you tell me about your setup? So when you come in, you can do whatever you want, or what is your setup like?
Yeah, they gave us a lot of flexibility, so we got to choose the equipment we're working with. They were very flexible. It was very fun. So we're doing 5 different single origins. We're gonna brew them as a Chemex as well as a batch brew, and we're doing 3 different espressos plus decaf. So we're doing our East Coast, West Coast. We're doing a single origin, Finca Kilimanjaro by Ida, and the decaf. So we're gonna tell them a little bit about how Panther came about and what's important for us, which is the quality of the coffee and the quality of the relationship. So we're gonna practice the recipes together. We're gonna make sure the coffee is tasting just its best and start a new team with them. It's very exciting for us because we have a very tight team in Miami, and expanding that a little bit for a month, it's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think tasting the coffee together is the most important part in my mind, just because we have such a familiarity with the coffee, and when you taste the coffee for the first time, you may like it, you may not like it, but you might not know exactly what its best rendition could be. And so for us, we've got a pretty clear idea of these coffees, and last night we tried to get them dialed in to the right spec, and tonight we'll taste as a group.
Especially when you're talking about espresso, we're not going to be here every morning for all 30 days, almost though. So they're going to have to dial in those coffees and decide what is the best representation of both East Coast and West Coast, as well as the single origin Finca Kilimanjaro. So we want to really get on the same page, as well as we want them to know a little bit about Panther. So when people come and like, whose coffee is this? They can share a little bit about the story of the company, as well as the producers behind the coffees. So Joe and I met at SAA, I think 2007 or 2008. We really agreed on pretty much everything when it came to coffee. So we got along really well, and he had a trip 2 weeks from SAA. He was going to Brazil. So landing in the same city where I was living. And we got really friendly, and he was like, okay, I'm going to Brazil. You wanna go on this trip? Went on the trip to help translate for the team and to hang out, of course. I got invited by a company in Portland to work with them. And so I moved to Portland, started working with Ristretto Roasters. Joe was working in an importing company with Becor, and we just started our business plan. And in the meanwhile, we got married and we finished our business plan. We decided what we wanted to do, and we had to choose a city. Then we chose Miami after like drinking a lot of wine, looking at a map on the wall of our tiny little table at the apartment in Portland, and we're like, Miami, who's in Miami? No one's in Miami. I mean, there's a lot of coffee, a lot of coffee, Miami. People love coffee, but it's Cuban coffee and a little bit of like big chain presence, but no specialty coffee carefully sourced, carefully roasted, carefully prepared in specialty style, right? So we moved to Miami. We just flew back to Portland, packed everything, and drove down. We got there.
I heard you drove a roaster.
We drove the roaster, we had an espresso machine, we had a Fetco.
Grinders.
Everything that we owned.
We got there, it was like December 31st, 2009. And then we started finding a space in Miami, getting to know the city because we really didn't know anything.
It took us a little while to get our feet on the ground in Miami. there were so many things happening there that moving from Portland, we were really not aware. I mean, we had heard about the real estate bubble, and to some degree, you know about it, but Miami was the biggest hit, in the nation, as far as I understand, and sort of retracting from that. So at that moment, we're opening a business. We're at like a 30-year high in green coffee prices, and eventually we stumbled upon this awesome area in a great little spot, which that's where we started and continues to be where we produce coffee. It's our flagship, yeah.
It's called Wynwood. It's a really up-and-coming neighborhood. Now it's kind of up. It was up-and-coming 5 years ago. Now it's really trendy. It's a great place. We know everyone there, and we have a little community. It's pretty great. And then after this first location, we opened 2 more locations. One in Coconut Grove, which is an area that's also going through a lot of transformations, very nice, and Sunset Harbor, which is a little enclave on Miami Beach. And now we're building 2 more, one in the Mid-Century Modern District and one in Little Haiti. It's the new up-and-coming area, so It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's going to be our world headquarters.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
Have a training lab, new roaster.
Roastery, offices, little coffee shop.
What is the Miami coffee scene in comparison to probably what we know, which is like Northwest?
It's changed a lot. So there was no Miami specialty coffee scene 6 years ago whatsoever, none. So there was a very Cuban coffee culture, which is very cool. Like you have the little windows and you have coffee with a lot of sugar, and it's a ritual. It's very beautiful. That's what existed. Now in the last 3 years or so, you have lots of new roasters popping up, people learning how to roast. Now you have some big names coming to Miami this year. So it's interesting to be able to welcome everyone, being established and now welcoming the new specialty coffee scene in Miami. It's very beginning.
Well, we moved to Miami from Portland, Oregon, and we noticed right away once we started roasting coffee and preparing coffee beverages that there was a difference in taste preferences. And we played with that a little bit just because our idea was to try to encourage people to try different tastes and experiment with coffees rather than like when you go in to a coffee shop, just get the same thing that you have every time and it needs to be the same. Where our idea was like, well, let's try some new stuff and realize that coffee from different farms and different origins tastes different without adding anything. So the East Coast idea was that coffees in the East Coast as well as preferences with wine and beer and other things tends to be more of like a rounded profile, more like chocolatey, full-bodied, creamy, lower acidity. Yet you can still use a fantastic coffee for that and show something beautiful in that realm. So we took a very Brazil-based idea of an espresso blend. The West Coast more of like a preference for acidity, lighter body. And it's funny because if you taste our West Coast espresso, it's based on Ethiopian coffee. It has, right now it has also the Figure Himalaya in it, which is a honey processed El Salvador, very sweet. It's got a little bit of body, but it's more about like crisp sweetness. And it's not like when you go to the West Coast and you order an espresso, that's what it tastes like. It's almost kind of a play on that. But our idea was that here's a way to get the conversation going without a lot of milk or like sugar whipped into the drink or whatever. And I mean, I'd be roasting a few months into that project and I hear people that are regulars, like I'll take a West Coast cappuccino, I'm like, woo, like it's working. So we got people to try different coffees that maybe they normally wouldn't have tried.
The customers brought a lot when it comes to how is it more South American. I think when Joe and I opened the first location, we started with very much like we were used in the West Coast, barely any food items, right? You barely had any pastries. You had fairly large milk drinks. And when we got there, people want small, strong coffee. They want savory items to eat with their coffee rather than sweet items. So there's those things. It was more like the customers brought that into, like requests than we bringing in and trying to glue it together. It happened organically.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I noticed because we're a shop roaster still, that's about to change. We'll still be a shop roaster, but we'll have an off-site roasting facility as well that you'll be able to see, but it's back a little ways from the retail area. But roasting coffee in the shop every day, and people come in, they place their order, they wait for their drink, and the roaster's kind of on your way out. We've always got like a couple coffee bags hanging out, or our stack of green coffee bags, and you can kind of almost tell where people are from based on what bag they're commenting from. So Brazilian people, they get really excited when they see not just Café do Brasil, but like exactly where in Brazil that it's from. Colombian people, Guatemalan people, Nicaraguan people. So we had a situation where we didn't really anticipate it, but so many people that came through our doors were from coffee producing countries. And you contrast that from roasting in a shop in Portland, Oregon, and it was a different world. It was like the inverse. And so in so many ways we built our business around green coffee and sourcing coffee and stuff. And I really felt that was a huge influence. And we were showing people coffees that were export products from their country that in some ways they weren't even that familiar with because they were going to other countries or other cities. And I think we both feel really proud about showing those coffees in an environment that hasn't previously like celebrated them. It's a great coffee scene, as we talked about, but it's more of a basic coffee with more of a ritual, and it's fun to be a part of that.
I heard that you do most of your own, or all of your own sourcing. Is that?
Say 90%.
We do, for the most part. Sometimes we buy coffee in groups, and ultimately the desire is for that to evolve into something bigger. But we have some relationships from previous engagements that we've been able to work into some purchasing that is full container purchases, which is good for us. We have a 10 kilo roaster, so you look at a full container of coffee, it's 40,000 pounds of coffee more or less, and you realize you're going to roast it 20 pounds at a time. Seems like a lot, but we've got a decent little wholesale program, so I think that the goal is to work on a container per origin, but we're just in the beginning of that.
And some producers also have smaller quantities, which is also exciting. We just have a new coffee, Finca Kilometro, and it's exclusive, and we met through a friend. So we have some new relationships that are very exciting too, as well as some older relationships. Yeah, it's really nice. We had a few green coffee offers straight from the trunk, you know. Producers, they come and like, okay, they park. You guys roast coffee, we want to show you a coffee, open the trunk, and it's like, here's the coffee, like, do you want to buy this bag of coffee? So we have a lot of people from origin. It's really exciting.
Yeah.
We get offered Colombian coffee probably 2-3 times a week.
From people from Colombia.
We have a joke in the roasting department, which is like, hey, I just found a guy that's willing to sell us Colombian coffee. But it's a good problem to have. And
it's not a problem. It's really fun.
No, it's not a problem. And a lot of our, many of our relationships did start in the shop. The Finca Himalaya that we have here this month, this is a guy that was in the shop for a whole week with his wife. He's wearing like a polo shirt, Miami Dolphins, full turquoise. Never thought too much, but I noticed like I've never seen that guy before. The Friday of the week that he was there, he came up and introduced himself as a producer of coffee.
Mauricio?
Yeah, and he introduced himself, and we were actually planning a trip to El Salvador the following month. So he's from Ataco, he's in Huachapan, and we visited him. Coffee was fantastic, and we bought like 80 bags from him, which is a nice place to start with a new relationship.
A lot of people from South and Central America love taking vacations in Miami. Like, it's the entry door to the U.S. and there's Disney World, which myself always wanted to go growing up. And you have a lot of producers that come on vacation and end up stumbling upon or just researched, and they go visit us. So we ended up meeting a lot of producers. It's very nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make us look good.
Yeah.
I will.
You shoot from here up, right?
Yeah, look at that. I should have been like...
Pin crop.
Take the gut out.
Oh my god.